Joining us live now is Salah Hijazi, Chief Political Editor at the Lebanese newspaper L'Orient le Jour. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, first of all, what's your reaction to this stunning news, this new development?
This is definitely a shock. Here in Lebanon, it feels like everything we knew for years has just disappeared. Lebanon has been under the influence of Hezbollah now for years now, and Hassan Nasrallah was a central figure in the political spectrum as well as in strategic decisions. So the fact that he's just not here anymore feels like a shock. I think when Hezbollah announced that its leader was killed, people in the streets were screaming.
Now, Salah, this news comes after intense Israeli bombardments over southern Lebanon over the past few days. What's the situation like in Daya right now?
Dahi is currently evacuated by a lot of its citizens. A lot of people have fled yesterday night after Israel hit the alleged headquarters of Hezbollah in Har Tahrik. After this strike, a lot of people left the neighborhood and are now displaced in downtown Beirut or in the many schools around the capital. There is a huge amount of fear and anxiety right now because Israel is continuing its carpet bombing of the suburbs of Beirut. We've had tens of buildings collapsing since yesterday in as many strikes.
Well, Salah, stay with us for the time being. Let's just bring in our foreign editor, James Andre, once again. James, Salah was just mentioning the fear and anxiety among the population in southern Lebanon. Is that what you saw as well?
Oh, it is what I saw. I mean, very clearly what we saw, as a team, we saw the result of one of the big strikes in southern Lebanon, but also we actually saw the first day, if you will, the main day of Israeli airstrikes in the southern part of Lebanon. The team, we were together with Karim Yayawi and Ashraf Abid. We actually witnessed 5 Israeli airstrikes as we were basically working in Sidon, which is just the gateway to the south, if you will. On that day, they hit over 1,000 targets. So, yes, there is complete terror, complete disorganization. Once again, we were at the funeral of Ibrahim Akil. We spoke to the people who were in charge of security for Hezbollah at that event, which had thousands of people basically carrying his coffin across Daniye. They told us that they were worried that there might be an Israeli airstrike. So what Israel has done indeed is saw absolute terror in all these Hezbollah-controlled areas. We witnessed the people fleeing the south because indeed they'd gotten messages. So, the Israelis hacked the phone systems. They managed to reach people, sending them SMSs, phone calls on landlines and cell phones as part of this strategy of saying they've warned people before striking, which they use then afterwards, when it comes to international law, saying that they indeed gave some warning. So what we saw was people fleeing, taking nearly nothing, people describing chaos in the villages in the south. One family, 15 people who had left in the same car, explaining that they were attending a funeral for an unrelated death in the village, and that simply, the Israelis started bombing at that precise moment. Some people were lightly injured at the funeral, but then they went back to their house, discovered their house had one complete wall missing, and just leapt into the car and left. They were sleeping in a classroom in Sidon when we met them. So, if you like, yes, it is complete chaos in southern Lebanon. You've got to realize that there have been over 2,000 targeted airstrikes by Israel over the past 96 hours. And of course,
more than 2,000.
Over 2,000, yeah, absolutely. From the northern part of the country, from Hermel, where I remember doing a report that was a few years ago, which is indeed, some villages are really Hezbollah strongholds, right through the Bekaa Valley and to the south of the country. So, yes, what we have is a massive, of course, aerial bombing campaign that's been taking place. And the result of that, of course, is fear. And you've got to realize that, once again, the disappearance of Hassan Nasrallah is huge news. The man has been absolutely central and pivotal for the organization and Lebanon at large for the last 30 years. So the question mark is now, what will Hezbollah do?
Well, Israel, on the other hand, has accused Hezbollah of using the civilian population as a human shield. Now, is that sentiment shared among the population there?
Oh, definitely not. But if you like, the thing is, you will have two views to that story. If you take the local population, they will tell you that Israel is bombing indiscriminately and that they are killing civilians and that they don't have a problem with that. On the other hand, the Israelis will tell you that indeed Hezbollah leadership is using these residential buildings atop their underground bases as human shields. But this is something they've been saying as well when it comes to Hamas in the Gaza Strip. But that is very much questions that will be asked, when it comes to the legality of these strikes later on, if you will. I mean, it's very much the question of how much damage or collateral damage, call it what you will, how many civilian people can die for a military objective. The international law is complex when it comes to that. It states that you have to avoid to inflict unnecessary suffering to civilian populations. Define that. So, obviously this is going to be two sides of the same story. In the same way, we've been seeing strikes on, with secondary blasts. The Israelis will tell you that was because it was a weapons depot of Hezbollah. Hezbollah supporters will tell you that's because it was close to a petrol station. The petrol station blew up. That is, I would say, basically the fog of war, and that is very much the same situation when it comes to these strikes on military targets, which are in the vicinity of a civilian infrastructure. But the fact of the matter is, yes, there has been extensive damage. A very large number of civilians, including women or children, have been killed in these various strikes in the southern suburbs of Beirut, which are densely populated. I mean, we were there, we saw it, and we saw the kind of damage. The building Ismail Akil was holding this high-level meeting with, it is believed, 10 other leaders of the branch of Hezbollah, had collapsed totally. There was strictly nothing left of it. I saw that. There was rubble. So, of course, we still don't have the death toll of yesterday evening's strike, but you can expect it to be very high indeed.
Now, let's cross back to Lebanon to speak with Salah Hijazi, chief political editor at the Lebanese newspaper L'Orient le Jour. Salah, we've been speaking with James about how the relationship between the general public and Hezbollah. What has been historically? Can you go back to tell us more about the relationship between the militant group and the Lebanese population?
Hezbollah is definitely a popular group here in Lebanon, especially among the Shia community. Hezbollah is perceived as the liberator of 2000 when the Israelis retreated from South Lebanon, and also as it is perceived as the author of the victory of 2006, after the July War.
So what can we expect from now on?
I think right now there is a lot of confusion amongst the popular base of the party, especially that we don't know the fate of either Naim Qasim, who is the deputy of Hassan Nasrallah, or Hashim Safi-ed-Din, who is his designated successor. So there's a lot of uncertainty going on about their fate, and I'd say that most Hezbollah supporters are now living in a dual crisis. The first is the loss of their leader, whom they perceive as a very popular, very charismatic person that contributed to several milestones in their history, and the fact that they don't know who will succeed him.
Now, so there is a lot of uncertainty, but certainly people aren't expecting that this would be a decisive blow to end Hezbollah as a militant group then.
Actually, in Lebanon in particular, the killing of sectarian and political leaders has historically impacted political dynamics. The assassination of Bashir al-Mayed in 1982 marks in many ways the end of Maronite supremacy in the country. The killing of Rafiq Hariri in 2005 also marks a turning point for Sunni influence in the country. But at the same time, unlike other political parties, Hezbollah is a very institutionalized party. So there are these. So one might say that the assassination of its Secretary General does not mean the end of the group. We still really don't know which of these two dynamics will succeed or will unfold.
And where is the Lebanese government in all this? What's a role? I mean, Lebanon's regular army, what role does it have in this conflict?
Lebanon's state is a rather weak state, especially now since Lebanon does not have a president. The government is the government now is expediting current affairs. So, by its nature, Lebanon is weak, and these two circumstances are adding to this weakness. The prime minister is now focusing on diplomatic contacts to avoid even further escalation, but that's pretty much all it can do. As for the army, it is trying to manage as much as possible the flow of displaced people.
Well, Salah Hijazi speaking to us from Lebanon. Thank you so much for your insight.